All right, on to our second topic in the weekly news roundup, and the link for the whole stream is in the description down below if you want to catch the whole stream. But of course, I've been talking about AI for a while since it's come out, and I can say I've taken an approach. I wanted to honestly look at it. What can it do? Where can it hurt us? And I agree, AI is overall a net negative for society, although there are places and purposes to use it. Now, I have been utilizing some AI in local test services. In fact, I had a difficult case. I had a client in a very small town that only does local business. It's like, I don't know how to do marketing stuff. And he can't really afford a big agency. So I'm sitting there today and I spent an hour or two just sitting there talking to this AI system to figure out and hash out some marketing plan to propose. All right, so it's decent for that type of stuff. Now, the problem is, of course, you have to vet what it says. I was started by asking the models things I'm very, very knowledgeable of, and I kind of chose some discussion on solar panels, and it gets a lot of things wrong. So you have to be very careful about that. So now, I have been tested out an online service you had to pay for, and I've also tested out some self-hosted, local-only AI tools as well. And so primarily, I have most of my work shifted over into the local Olama server using a number of downloaded models on the system to do that. So that's kind of where I'm going with the most right now. But I will say that looking at all the different factors, looking at it, AI has a lot of fundamental problems, and we have to be cognizant of that, and we have to be alarmed. And from Malwarebytes here, we had an excellent article on 2025 expose the risks we ignored while rushing into AI. And this really covers some of the downsides. The first they mention here is agentic browsers. Remember, this is you give your browser power and autonomy to do things for you, oftentimes involving things like utilizing your account information to do something or shopping for it. So you're giving this browser your credit card information or personal profiles or things like that. The problem is it first started, I think it was Brave that came out with a search looking at the Cosmic browser, I think, from Perplexity, and saying, yeah, there's this prompt injection that you can basically have some code in the page that overrides your agentic AI and takes over maliciously. OpenAI openly says we are unable to keep the agentic browser secure. Windows, while pushing Windows to become fully agentic in the future, you can turn on agentic features right now, but they warn you, be aware the agentic features in Windows are very susceptible to prompt injections and you might give up all of your data to hackers. Go figure. But we're running as quickly as possible into that. There is, of course, mimicry, fake interfaces. So this is interfaces, tools, apps that look and in many ways behave just like your primary AI tools, but they are fakes. They look the same, they behave the same, and they may even function in some ways the same, but they're scraping data. In our quick lines today, we'll talk about some browser extensions that were browser extensions for AI that ended up slurping up a bunch of data. In fact, it was so similar to other ones that came out, I thought it was the same article. But to dig in and find, no, it's actually two different extensions. But mimicry. Misconfiguration, of course, the toys, the AI toys were released by Consumer Reports. They had a warning about how dangerous these AI tools are for your kids, that these tools escalated very quickly from innocent talks to becoming PDF files, apparently, within minutes, without any suggestive prompting in the way. Just immediately, they just went on to it. And so that was seriously a problem. BDSM-related topics explain knots for beginners and reference role-play scenarios involving kiddos and, I guess, PDF files. I don't know. Yikes. All right. And of course, you had a misinterpretation. We warned against this one. The schools deploying AI systems to detect for dangerous stuff. And we've actually had two separate cases where police were called to two separate schools because a dude was eating Doritos, okay? And one of them's name was Taki, okay? You just can't make this stuff up. Let's not to mention also, was it South Carolina, North Carolina? It's one of the Carolina states. There was an AI that flagged an umbrella as a AK or something, some big assault rifle. That also elicited a police response. That guy there took it really fun. He went and posed in like shooting type positions with his umbrella later. That was great. But it could go really bad if the police really think that you're up to something. Dude, they might come in with guns blazing if they think you're sporting a gun. Like, drop the Dorito, dude, but that is a certain issue with AI. And I warned you should not be doing this kind of stuff. They're like, no, it's great. It's great. And I still think the company should be paying those kids millions of dollars, not the taxpayers, not the school, not the police department, the company, because they unleashed a service. Now, of course, they said, well, this was supposed to be a human reviewer was supposed to do it. Well, welcome to laziness induced by AI. Okay, that's the problem. Then you have your data breaches. 2 AI companion apps were recently exposing private conversations because users were not clearly warned that certain settings would result in their conversations becoming searchable. And then that wasn't just browser extensions. That was like some of the full large AIs allowed anytime you shared an AI, it created a URL that was searchable. So you had that. So of course, what should we do? We should, the problem here is that, as they say in this highlight, as long as we keep chasing the newest features, companies will keep releasing new integrations, whether they are safe or not. That is a fundamental problem, okay? Whether they are safe or not. And so the challenge that we have to do is we have to be more careful about AI. And this leads us to, sorry guys, I gotta read something from Orange Man Bad. I know I have to, but there was an executive order about this, and some people are saying this is total deregulation, which it's not. But I can't say I fully agree with this executive order either. So let me kind of get into this really quick. And there's a lot here. The thing is that this is in ways made to be a stopgap against some, not all, some form of state regulation. And we're like, how dare you say that, you pro-Trump psycho? If you read the executive, I know it's hard reading, it's hard. But if you read this massive executive order, that's all it is. The only regulation from states this rejects is regulation that, to the Republican side, leans more Democratic, okay? So it is kind of in some ways an anti-democratic state AI regulation bill. There are parts of that I agree with and parts of that I disagree with. It's not that no state can have an AI regulation. It's that no state can have an AI regulation which violates constitutional amendments or which would cause harm. And it's kind of the cause harm to children part. That's the part I'm going to disagree with because I just think kids shouldn't be near this stuff. And we as a collective society need to do this. So let's go and actually read some of the text of the executive order. And I'm just if you're having a TDS anaphylactic shock, just shoot yourself with your EpiPen and just calm down, take a few deep breaths. I'm going to read from Satan himself writing words down. Okay. First, state-by-state regulation, by definition, creates a patchwork of 50 different regulatory regimes, which makes compliance more challenging, particularly for startups. Okay, so this is first principle. We don't want a system where there's 50 different sets of rules that states need to follow. The AI companies, need to follow. I agree with that principle, okay? And I think if we can come down to a solid federal policy that protects consumers from RAM prices that are going through the roof and prevents data centers from causing everybody's electricity bill to go up while 3 or 4 guys at the top make all the money. If we can solve some of these problems, I'm okay with a national framework. I'm not okay with a national framework that is pure deregulation. And many people have reported on this executive order saying it is pure deregulation, and it is not. A clear reading of the bill shows it is not pure deregulation. Okay, this is the one. Secondly, and this is secondly, there's 3 reasons here why states having all their own laws is problematic. The second one is state laws are increasingly responsible for requiring entities to embed ideological bias within models. That's the part. I agree. Then ideological bias should not be part of AI. The problem we have with that is who defines what is an ideological bias, because we can't agree with that. And that's one of the problems. And I think that's the problem he has with this. Okay, so he gives an example. A Colorado law banning algorithmic discrimination may even force AI models to produce false results in order to avoid differential treatment or impact on protected groups. So you can say something about this race of people, but not say something about that race of people. That could be problematic. And we know that Colorado is this insane because they have dragged the same baker all the way up to the Supreme Court twice now. Okay? All because not that baker saying, I'm not going to sell you a cake. It's that baker says, I'm not going to customize a cake with a message I disagree with. Interesting, isn't it? While saying you can pick any other cake in here and buy it, and I will give you the names of a bunch of bakers who are friends of mine who would love to do that message. This is not about, I want this cake. This case was about, I want to impose my religious views on your religious views, and that's a problem. All right. Third, state laws sometimes impermissibly regulate beyond state borders, impinging on interstate commerce. This is another fundamental problem, because how do you have a global company have a different set of laws in different places? Well, we kind of know it's happening with all those VPNs and age ID laws. Interesting. But there's 3 basic principles, and in principle, these 3 things make a valid case for why this is needed. Now, if it's pure deregulation, if it's like no state may make a law, you got to let the AI companies run roughshod, we got serious problems. This is why the order is set up to create a federal regulatory framework, which we can agree on by the 50 states. Okay, every bit of this. Okay, my administration must act with the Congress to ensure there's a minimally burdensome national standard, not 50 discontented state ones. So notice this. It's not Hitler the tyrant imposing his will on the world. It's we are working with Congress. Why? To set a bill to establish a federal regulation. Okay, that framework should also ensure children are protected. That's a problem with me, because children shouldn't be near this kind of stuff. And by children are protected means we have to push ID verifications. And I completely reject everything and anything that wants to push ID verifications. Absolutely not. So I disagree with this principle. This is not a place or an item or something for children. We need a collective societal agreement to keep children away from this kind of stuff. And if your children are getting near it, well, I guess they get to suffer the consequences, huh? Okay. Or maybe we have some other means of protecting the kids in some way that's not as onerous as everybody has to supply an ID. Okay. Secondly, censorship is prevented. Yes, I agree. We do not need a situation where people cannot look up certain words. Okay. Copyrights are respected. That's something AI companies by and large don't want. And communities are safeguarded. Now, that is a more general one. And that is one that I would like to see more expounding on. And community safeguarded, I think this should look like, number one, we have to set in limits on purchasing equipment. We need to make sure that the prices remain reasonable for reasonable average Americans to continue to buy and upgrade their computers. Because I forget who did the numbers, but a stick of RAM from 6 months ago went up like 5,000% in price. That's utterly insane. Meanwhile, Microsoft is sitting on warehouses of RAM that they can't even do anything with because they don't have any power and won't have power for at least 3 or 4 years. All right. That's insane. Also, communities are getting harmed by this AI push with the data centers. As the data centers move in, it's jacking up prices for utilities for everybody else. because, well, we got to generate more energy now. We got to charge more money for all our energy now. No, I think the data centers and the companies behind those data centers need to eat all of the extra costs. If a data center moves into an area, the utilities for the common people in that area must not change, period. Especially since these companies have so much money, they can afford the hit. The people in the communities cannot. And so you have to have that. But they don't define what communities are safeguarded actually means. And that's one of the challenges I have here. All right, so the next is imperative my administration makes actions to check the most onerous and excessive laws emerging from states that threaten and stymie innovation. Notice this is not a ban on all. It's we are checking the laws to make sure that they do not stifle innovation. Again, that's another one that's a problem. What do you mean by innovation? And there's some questions we have. So this is not, I'm not fully in agreement with this policy. I'm saying let's breaking it down and see what's going on. So Section 2, the basic policy. Section 3, the AI litigation task force. So within 30 days of the date of the order, and this order I think was December 12th. So by January 12th, the Attorney General should establish an AI litigation task force whose sole responsibility is to challenge state AI laws inconsistent with the policy in Section 2. Now, this means that it's not you're not allowed an AI law, it's you have to have an AI law that does not infringe on these principles that we're talking about. All right. So, and what they're going to do is if they happen to infringe, then they're going to refer these over looking, basically it's going to be on the purview of the Attorney General's judgment. The unfortunate thing right now, I think our Attorney General is an idiot. So I'm not sure. Okay. So now this is all about the evaluation of state laws. 90 days of the date of the order, Secretary of Commerce, with the Secretary's authority shall, in constitution with a special advisor for AI and crypto, assist the President for economic policy, and the Assistant President of Science and Technology and the Assistant to the President, Counsel of the President, shall publish an evaluation of existing state laws that identify onerous laws that conflict with the policy, as well as the laws that should be referred to the task force of the order. They also shall identify laws that require AI models to alter their truthful outputs and compel AI developers or deployers or disclose or report information in a manner that would violate First Amendment or any other provision of Constitution. The evaluation may additionally identify state laws that promote AI innovation consistent with the policy. So they're also looking at state laws to say, this is a really good law. Let's add this to the discussions with Congress. So it is looking at which laws stifle. Is it pure innovation or is it constitutional protections? Maybe a little of both. But they're also looking for which state laws are helping in some ways. So they do have within 90 days, they can do some funding restriction in the event that AI laws are kind of out of the way there. And then there is 90 days of it. Then they need to have this person, let's see, blah, 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 shall determine whether to adopt a federal reporting and disclosure standard. So they have 90 days to determine if they need to have a place to disclose this kind of stuff. Section 7, preempting of state laws and mandating deceptive conduct. So their guides after 90 days shall issue a policy statement on the application of the FTC Act's prohibition on unfair and deceptive practices act under some AI models. Though the policy statement must explain the circumstances under which state laws require alterations to the FTC. And basically they're saying, hey, these are the ways we think. They're referring them to the FTC for evaluation. And then, let's see, legislative recommendation called for subsection A, and the section shall not propose preempting otherwise lawful state laws. So this is 4 sections here that they're not wanting to change. The problem is, number one, child safety protections. That, to me, is a fundamental problem because this by and large right now is meaning ID verifications, or at least age verifications. Secondly, compute and data center infrastructure. Now, this is a problem. This is something I have a big challenge with. I think that we are running roughshod with data centers right now. We need to stop, put a pause on this, because we have data centers that are built, like Microsoft has a data center in California that's already built, and they can't even turn it on for at least 3 more years because they can't get electricity to it. So these companies are sitting on all of these data centers, buying up all of these computer equipment that they can't even use for 3 years. You may as well sell that stuff back to the regular populace. You know what I mean? All right. So, and we need to talk about this. We definitely need to talk about the data center infrastructure in terms of, we should say, how is those data centers affecting the local community? Because if every time a data center shows up, everyone in the local community's prices completely skyrocket, that's a fundamental problem. All right, so state government procurement and the use of AI and other topics shall be determined. So that is what the executive order actually says. It is not pure deregulation. It is just a system that says, hey, we're going to evaluate a lot of these things, figure out what works, figure out what doesn't. I agree with some of these things in here. I disagree with some of these things in here. But that is at least what the executive order has to say, because we have jumped too fast into AI and we need to slow that down. So that's what we have for this topic. You can have a look at the link in the description for the full stream if you want to watch the full stream. Thanks for watching.